when a young woman stumbled upon an old sepia-toned photograph of an army officer in a mysterious 1884 group shot. She had no idea the terrifying secret she was about to unleash. Experts later zoomed in to examine the weathered image, and instantly, they got the shock of their lives. Even seasoned historical analysts like David Muir in a recent segment called the discovery terrifying. What they found hidden in that seemingly innocent photograph wasn't just unsettling. It was a revelation that could rewrite a hidden, almost unbelievable chapter of history itself, challenging our very understanding of identity, consciousness, and the past. This isn't just another forgotten relic or a dusty anecdote. It's a chilling, authenticated glimpse into an impossible truth, a mystery that transcends time and defies logic. Get ready, because the more you learn, the more the veil between what you thought was real and what might actually be possible begins to fray. In the dimly lit, musty back room of Hastings' oldest archival shop, a place where forgotten fragments of history lay slumbering, 17-year-old Martha Hurst grimly examined yet another dusty box of Victorian-era photographs. Her grand-uncle, Malcolm, a retired history professor with a seemingly endless passion for the past, had dedicated his golden years to preserving these overlooked pieces of British history. For Martha, a Gen Z teenager with vibrant purple-tipped hair and an insatiable desire for the latest trends, this wasn't an achievement to be celebrated. She simply couldn't fathom the zeal these scholars possessed. It all felt so lame, so 2013. Yet here she was, snooping reluctantly around the cramped, dust-filled room, completely unaware of the reality-shattering discovery she was about to make on this miserably rain-soaked Friday afternoon. Ugh, this is so boring, Martha groaned, blowing an exasperated strand of hair from her face. She stood to her feet, trailing with palpable reluctance behind old Malcolm through the cramped aisles, enveloped by the musty, heavy smell of forgotten history. Rain pattered relentlessly against the grimy windows, trapping her in what felt like a dusty prison when she could have been at the mall with her friends, living her actual life. "Just one more hour, Martha," Malcolm Hurst replied, his voice gentle and placating, without looking up from the box of monochrome portraits he meticulously examined. The retired history professor had been designated her guardian for the weekend, while her parents attended a conference in Edinburgh. The old man, oblivious to her torment, felt utterly elated having young blood around. Martha, however, had trouble sharing his quaint sentiments. "These photographs are pieces of our history, fragments of lives once lived," he offered, his tone almost pleading. "Yeah, whatever," Martha muttered under her breath, pulling out her phone. No signal. "Perfect," Malcolm, sensing her wandering. "Attention," called out. "And please don't wander off. Some of these artifacts are irreplaceable." Martha rolled her eyes. Everything about her grand-uncle was predictably boring. His cashmere jackets with elbow patches, his endless lectures about preserving the past, and especially these weekend excursions to what she often derisively called glorified junk shops. What could possibly be interesting about a bunch of faded pictures of dead people? Ignoring her uncle's warning as was her habit, she slipped through a beaded curtain into a hidden back room. This small enclosure was a labyrinth of shelves overflowing with leather-bound albums and rusted metal storage boxes. At least here, she thought, she could escape old Malcolm's constant historical commentary. She ran two fingers idly along the edge of a dusty shelf, sneering at the grime that instantly masked her fingertips. Then, a small, intriguing wooden chest caught her eye. Unlike the other mundane containers, this one looked like something out of a pirate movie, a miniature treasure chest. Finally, she thought, something that might be worth her precious time. Checking to make sure her uncle was still thoroughly occupied in the main room, Martha carefully lifted the lid, her heart thumping with a sudden, uncharacteristic excitement. Half hoping to find ancient jewelry once worn by English royalty. Sadly, she was sorely mistaken. Inside lay several envelopes of thick, yellowed paper. "More pictures of my ancestors, just great," she remarked dryly, the hope quickly draining from her voice. She proceeded to dig through layers of papers, her enthusiasm rapidly waning. Towards the very end of the box, almost casually, she removed an envelope at random and slid out a sepia-toned photograph. 14 men stared back at her, arranged in two neat rows, several clutching walking sticks. They wore the smart, formal attire of the Victorian era, their expressions solemn, as was customary for photography of the time. "Boring," she murmured again, about to return it to its dusty tomb, when something about one of the men caught her attention. Unlike the others, whose poses seemed uncomfortable and forced, this man, sitting at the end of the bottom row, had an unnaturally rigid, almost unnerving posture. His eyes seemed to pierce through time itself, looking not at the camera, but somehow, disturbingly, beyond it, into some unseen future or a parallel dimension. A chill ran down Martha's spine as she studied his face. "This is terrifying," she thought, a shiver tracing her arm despite the stagnant air. She flipped the photograph over. In faded, elegant handwriting, it read, "Correlate Church of England Academy, 1884. Below that, in a different, frantic hand, someone had circled one figure and scrolled, "Thrombell? Impossible." Martha sneered at the strange photo and its baffling inscription. "Weird. Martha, what are you doing back there?" Malcolm's voice suddenly called from the main room, snapping her back to reality. "Coming!" she hastily called back, shoving the photograph deep into her jacket pocket before rejoining her granduncle. Something about that haunting gaze, that inexplicable sense of dread, compelled her to keep the discovery to herself. At least for now, the mystery had just begun, and it would quickly consume her. That evening, as Malcolm prepared dinner in the cozy, cluttered kitchen of his old Victorian home, Martha, still consumed by the unsettling image, retrieved the photograph from her pocket. Wasn't shaving cream a thing in the 1800s? She genuinely wondered aloud, taking note of the luxuriantly overgrown mustaches on the men's faces. Even the mysterious man who had caught her attention had the same facial mass, but his somehow looked more intimidating, more unnerving than the rest. Under the proper focused light of her bedroom lamp, the details of this man's face became chillingly clearer. A distinctive scar above his right eyebrow, an unusual cleft in his chin, and those eyes, there was something deeply, profoundly unsettling about them, a gaze that seemed to hold unspeakable secrets. Acting on a sudden, impulsive urge, she took a picture of the photograph with her phone and zoomed in dramatically on the strange man's face. Even digitally enlarged, his features maintained an unnatural, almost unsettling sharpness. Unlike the slightly blurred and mundane faces of the others in the group, Martha picked at her food at dinner, her mind miles away, debating whether to mention her discovery. Her grand-uncle, noticing her profound distraction, unknowingly sparked the precise conversation she both dreaded and longed for. Martha hesitated, then plunged in. "Uncle Mal," she began, her voice barely a whisper. "What do you know about someone named Thrombell?" The old man's expression instantly shifted, stunned into silence by the unexpected question. "Thrombell?" he repeated, his voice barely audible. "Where did you hear that name?" His reaction was so unexpected, so utterly uncharacteristic, that Martha immediately pulled out her phone and showed him the picture she'd taken. "I found this in the back room today. Someone wrote Thrombell on the back." Malcolm's face paled. As he took the phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he painstakingly enlarged the image, his historian's instincts already on high alert. "Good heavens," he whispered, a tremor in his voice. "After all these years, Martha, may I see the original?" When Martha retrieved the actual sepia photograph, Malcolm examined it with a reverence that bordered on awe, his historian's hands careful not to soil the fragile surface with even a trace of grease. "Do you realize what you found?" he asked, his voice now hushed with a profound excitement that Martha had never heard before. "This man is Major Gabriello Thrombell, a Victoria Cross recipient from the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879. He's something of a legend among military historians, a profound mystery." On any normal day, Martha would have rolled her eyes at such historical fervor, but this Thrombell truly fascinated her for some inexplicable reason. "What's so special about him?" she pressed, her own curiosity piqued. Malcolm's eyes gleamed with scholarly passion. Thrombell was a hero at the Battle of Rorke's Drift, where approximately 150 British troops valiantly defended a mission station against 4,000 to 5,000 Zulu warriors. He also fought in the Battle of Ulunda, another decisive victory for the British Army that year. At the end of everything, Thrombell received Britain's highest military honor for his unparalleled valor there. "So he was a war hero," Martha shrugged, trying to contextualize the excitement. "That's cool, but why did someone write impossible?" On the photo, Malcolm paused, his gaze fixed on the haunting image. "Because," he said slowly, deliberately, "according to official records, Major Thrombell died in 1882. 2 years before this photograph was taken." He looked at Martha, his expression grim. "If authentic, Martha, this is terrifying." Martha cocked an eyebrow in disbelief, her mind struggling to reconcile the impossible. "Are you sure it's the same guy?" "The scar, the cleft in the chin," Malcolm confirmed, excitement now building palpably in his voice, despite the chilling implications. They matched the descriptions in military records. This could be an extraordinary historical discovery. The question is, why would a dead war hero be in a group photograph at Carlisle Academy? The mystery had just escalated, drawing in more experts, and the truth would be far more unbelievable than a ghost in a picture. By morning, Malcolm had already contacted his colleague, Dr. Katie Walsh from Cambridge University, a renowned expert on war and international studies, especially Old English history. Within days, Martha found her grand-uncle's quiet home transformed into an impromptu, bustling research center. Dr. Walsh and a keen graduate student named Samuel Norris had settled into the dining room, more books scattered around them than Martha had ever seen in her life. "I still can't believe you found this," Dr. Walsh told Martha, her voice filled with genuine awe as they waited for a high-resolution scanner to complete its work. Historians have been searching for information about Thrombell's final years for decades. "I was just trying to avoid listening to Uncle Mal's lecture on photographic preservation techniques," Martha admitted with a sheepish grin. Dr. Walsh smiled warmly. "Sometimes the greatest discoveries happen by accident, Martha. Your rebellious wandering may have just solved one of military history's most persistent and chilling mysteries." Martha, to her own surprise, found herself irrevocably drawn into the unfolding investigation, her initial boredom utterly replaced by genuine, captivating curiosity. When the painstakingly scanned image appeared on Dr. Walsh's laptop, the experts gathered around, their faces etched with anticipation, zooming in on Thrombell's face with a clarity impossible in the original sepia photograph. "That's definitely him," Dr. Walsh confirmed, comparing the enlarged image to a sketch portrait from military archives. "The scar matches wounds documented after Rourke's drift. But what's wrong with his eyes?" Samuel Norris, the graduate student, interjected, a slight tremor in his voice. "They don't look natural." On the high-resolution screen, Thrombell's pupils appeared unnaturally dilated, and there was something fundamentally, chillingly wrong with his gaze, a profound vacancy that went beyond the standard stiffness of Victorian photography. The group ran more tests with their specialized equipment, their anticipation turning to mounting unease. When the results finally appeared, an uncomfortable, almost terrified silence fell over the room. "This can't be right," Samuel muttered, his eyes wide. "For a second, I thought Thrombell's facial muscle tension was inconsistent with a living subject, but this... something is off." A decorated war hero who had undergone a complete military burial was seemingly alive and real in a group photo, dated 2 years after his official death. "You thought this was a post-mortem photograph?" Samuel asked, looking at Martha, his expression disbelieving. "Post-mortem? As in after death?" Martha gasped, shocked beyond words. She knew dead people were posed for pictures in Victorian England. It was a macabre historical fact one could learn at school, but it seemed this had not yet appeared on Martha's syllabus, or maybe she just didn't pay enough attention in class. Dr. Walsh answered her unspoken questions with clinical grace and wisdom before returning to the main conversation. In traditional post-mortem photography, the deceased were clearly positioned as such, often in repose, surrounded by flowers or family. You wouldn't find them standing, rigid, among the living in formal group portraits like this. "Then what are we looking at?" Martha pressed, her voice urgent. Malcolm, who had been quietly examining school records from the county archive, looked up from his papers, a new glint in his eye. "Perhaps the more important question," he mused, "is, who was Gabriel Thompson?" The others turned to him in confusion. "According to Carlisle Academy's employment records," Malcolm continued, "they hired a classics instructor named Gabriel Thompson in January 1884, the very same year as this photograph. The physical description matches Thrombell perfectly." The plot thickened. A dead man in a photo, identical looks, yet a different name and profession. The true answer, it turned out, lay hidden in a forgotten journal, waiting to unravel the profound, unbelievable truth. That weekend passed, and Martha, utterly captivated, refused to leave her granduncle's house. Her newfound quest was too intriguing, too profound to let go casually, especially since they were on the very edge of a breakthrough that, unbeknownst to them, would spark the shock of their lives. 2 days later, Martha, Dr. Walsh, and old Malcolm took a short, purposeful trip to Carlisle Academy, or rather, what had become of it. The old structure had been transformed into a welfare center, manned by a missionary who had taken over from the generation of teachers who had walked within those walls centuries ago. Without wasting time, old Malcolm took the lead, his historian's charm on full display, speaking to Sister Benita, the kind, serene woman in charge of the welfare home. Sister Benita appeared to be in her late 50s or early 60s, with an air that attested to years of grace and peace. "Why, dear, that was eons ago," she spoke in her gentle native accent, smiling in astonishment and mild shock at their strange request. But after much persuasion, she summoned a novice nun, Sister Eugene, to lead the curious historians to the archives. The group followed in tow as they climbed a crooked, creaking stairwell into a musty, forgotten room filled to the ceiling with ancient books and papers. There, Martha watched in profound fascination as the historians meticulously pieced together an extraordinary, almost surreal narrative. While her friends texted about parties and school drama, she was helping uncover what appeared to be one of the Victorian era's most closely guarded secrets. In the Academy's dusty archives, a collection of letters from the headmaster about Mr. Thompson and his unusual behavior suddenly emerged. The entries showcased a young, concerned headmaster expressing profound worries about Thompson's unusual demeanor and trance-like states during evening hours. The investigation took another astonishing turn when they found a personal journal owned by a teacher named Magnus, carefully preserved in a hidden compartment of an old forgotten box. His first 10 entries documented his journey as a teacher at the academy and his developing friendship with Gabriel Thompson, whom he considered a trusted confidant. However, it was the 12th entry that caused a significant stir, forcing a collective gasp. "My dear friend Gabriel just made a drunken mistake," Magnus began, his handwriting sprawling with agitation. "His true name is Gabriel Thrombell, twin brother to the war hero Gabrio." Martha gasped as she read the words aloud to the group. Twins! He had a twin brother! Malcolm carefully examined the fragile paper, his hands trembling. This changes everything. As they carefully turned the fragile pages of Magnus's journal, an incredible, almost unbelievable story unfolded. Gabriel was indeed Major Gabriello Thrombell's older twin brother. He had been tragically kidnapped as a child and eventually separated from his family. The family that took him in was the Thompsons, and he changed his name from then on, adopting their identity. "But here's where things get absolutely crazy," Martha said, her voice a mix of awe and disbelief as she pieced together multiple portions of the journal. "Look at this. He had the exact same injuries in the same areas his brother was wounded in the war." She pointed to the faded text. "The scar on his face appeared in a freak accident when an iron spring he threw to the ground bounced off the floor and nicked his right eyebrow. The cleft in his chin happened when he was little, when he tried running away from a bunch of goons and ended up landing face first on a concrete slab." "A case of twin mirroring," Dr. Walsh gasped in bewildered amazement, her voice filled with academic excitement. "There are documented cases of identical twins separated at birth who develop the same mannerisms, make strikingly similar life choices, and sometimes even experience similar physical trauma. But this level of physical mirroring is extraordinary, almost supernatural." Malcolm pointed to another chilling entry. "The eyebrow incident happened right about the same time his brother was grazed with a spear at war." "And the cleft chin," Sister Eugene murmured, her eyes wide. "Like predestination was bound to happen someday. It happened when Gabriel was young, and Gabriel was a soldier." "But if Gabriel Thompson was just Gabriel's twin brother," Martha interjected, trying to understand it all, her mind reeling. Why would the headmaster describe his trance-like states? What did that have to do with anything? During their research, Martha learned that there were so many things about science and human relations that went far beyond our conventional walls of understanding. While Magnus's journal couldn't provide all the answers, it offered them crucial, mind-bending pieces of the puzzle. Those trance-like states often turned out to be profound dream states, moments when Gabriel experienced what he described as a fleeting taste of war. Although it wasn't stated explicitly in the journal, the experts, gripped by the implications, knew Gabriel in those moments was experiencing his brother's battles through those trance-like eyes, a psychic, empathetic connection. Across vast distances and different lives, a shared consciousness of trauma and heroism. At the end of the unplanned research trip, word of their astonishing discovery spread like wildfire through academic circles, and Martha found herself, once the bored teenager, at the very center of a historical sensation. The teenage girl who had once been utterly bored by her granduncle's passion for the past had, by accident, helped uncover a photograph. A group shot in 1884 featuring 14 men in formal suits, with one who appeared to be inexplicably channeling his dead brothers. Consciousness, reliving his battles. Their incredible story showcased a connection that had extended far beyond what any family should be asked to maintain, a bond that defied logic and even death, and Martha, transformed by the experience, was profoundly grateful for the chance to learn it. What do you think of this kind of twin connection? Do you believe in such profound, almost psychic bonds between siblings, defying explanation? Could this astonishing twin mirroring be a new explanation for other historical anomalies, other inexplicable events? Let us know your thoughts, your theories, no matter how wild, in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more mysteries that challenge everything you thought you knew about history, science, and the very fabric of reality itself.